Hello again, Timber Creek friends. Welcome to your fifth edition of Tech Tip Tuesday. It's David Ackley here, trying to help you make sense of the Googles. Today's about keeping your Google Drive organized. So I have up in front of me drive.google.com, and this is again a test account I use to demonstrate things to students. And notice there are some folders here in my Drive. Most of you are probably already familiar with it. Drive is just the Google version of your Windows Explorer, the place where all your files live. Hopefully you already know that you can have both Google files here and you can upload Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, whatever kind of file you want, it can live here. Remember that your education account is also unlimited storage. So if you have a bunch of files that you're concerned about taking up space on your laptop that you need for school, you can dump them here and see how many megabytes or gigabytes you've taken up. So this test account has 7 megabytes used, but notice it doesn't say 7 megabytes used of 15 gigabytes available, which might be the difference that you might notice for one of your personal Google accounts. There's a limit to the storage. In our education domain, G Suite, there is no limit. So a couple quick things. The first thing is to think carefully about the folders you create. Different add-ons, apps, and extensions will automatically create folders for you, such as this one. Google Classroom has a folder, and if you open that up, it'll list all the classes that you're a member of. This test account is a member of a bunch of classes. I will leave those kind of folders alone. Screencastify is an extension that I use, one, to make this video, and two, to just connect with my students. And there's going to be a Screencastify folder in your Drive, automatically created right underneath the main My Drive section. I'd leave stuff like that alone. I mentioned to my students that they should create school year folders so they can keep track of all their stuff in school years and then break each school year down. Notice how I did Science 17-18. The reason for that is if the kid puts a science folder in his 2016-17 folder and you want to differentiate in a search, you might have 2 science folders. So to know which one's which, you want to label the things. So that's my first tip to you, is to label your folders carefully. Think about what you want to do with them and then label them accordingly. So if you want a folder for departmental information, whatever your department is, and that's all where you keep all the important stuff for your department, and you want to label that and you want to identify it quickly, and then you want to put subfolders in there and all that stuff, just think about it carefully. What kind of department stuff are you going to need? So branch out that folder as necessary. So for the students, 2016-17, they got a folder. If they type science 16-17, and let's say they're planning ahead, and they decide, you know what, I'm getting ready for next year, 2018-19. There's stuff from my last year here at Timber Creek, and they want to put a folder in there, folder science 18-19. Notice how back in Drive, if I search for science, I get 3 folders. So because they're all carefully labeled, then it all makes sense. Now, a number of teachers and staff, you decide to label or name your folder with a number in the front. So if I rename this guy and call it 00, notice when I sort by name, that folder's at the top. And then if you do a 01, shows up. So same thing. When you develop your folder scheme, your folder system, if you number stuff, the stuff you use most often, you might want to put numbers in front of that, 01, 02, 03. That way you can find stuff fast. Now that's great and everything. I particularly don't like that in the My Drive section. I like having these guys better. But that's up to you how you want to leave it. The fun stuff that you can do in Drive that's unique to Drive is you can color code. So change color. You may or may not know that the brain is conditioned and trained to recognize colors, shapes, and patterns way faster than text. So if you color code the important stuff, different years, maybe all your science folders are going to be green, or all your worksheet folders. You always make math red, and gym you're always going to make yellow. Then that stuff stands out to you. I mentioned to some of my students that in Classroom, there's a color scheme in Classroom. So maybe if the color scheme in Classroom is purple, that subject, you make that folder that you control in your Drive purple as well. And if you mention any of this to your students, or yourself for that matter, there's a distinction between what Google Classroom controls here and folders you create here. You own control and dump stuff in here. Don't let Google do it for you. Now, one nice thing that is true in both Windows Explorer and Google Drive is when you want to organize yourself. You have to name these files for them to be saved. So I got a test folder or test. Oh, never mind, they're both saved. If you right-click, there's a nice Move To feature. So if you copy maybe a document from somebody else, it's always going to show up in your My Drive, and you want to move it into a folder, you can do that here. So you pick the folder you want it to go into, and then say move it there, and then that test document will show up in that folder. So that's a nice little trick. And then the last thing I want to show you about being organized in Drive is the starred feature. So folders, documents, things that are important, if you star them, right-click and star, and that applies to any folder, even if it's buried. Any document, even if it's buried somewhere. So if I go back to this folder or this document I just buried down here and star that. So you've got things that are important to use often. When you click on starred, all those starred items show up. If it's something that's only important for a short time period, you remove the star. You don't need to work on it. Maybe it's a temporary project or a shared folder or something. So that is my quick tips Google Drive. Be careful about labeling your folders. Name them, order them in a way that makes sense to you. Color code in a way that makes sense, whether you want to match up with the Classroom or not. And leave alone folders like these two, the ones that automatically get created by either Google or by an app or extension. I just leave those alone, let them be. Some of you might even decide to make a folder called Leave Alone. Create that folder and drag all these ones you don't want to look at, or ones that are controlled by some other thing like Google Classroom or an app or extension, into a folder that you leave alone. And then to remind yourself, you make that red, don't touch it. And that's a quick tip. Now, if you want to take a peek, just so you know what I do, My Drive, there's a whole bunch of messiness, all kinds of files and folders and things. Those of you who are still working off your shared, your H drive, when I first made the switch, I made a Timber Creek folder, and then I replicated all my folders in my H drive. So that might be something you want to consider doing. And in my scheme, I numbered all my stuff. So 01, 02, 03, and then I color-coded different things. I starred the ones. So during soccer season, I have my soccer folder starred. And then not during soccer season, it's not starred. But notice how the My Pictures and My Videos you might recognize as being folders that are in Windows Explorer or your desktop. So that's where those came from. So maybe you want to make a Timber Creek folder and then make a folder tree that resembles what you already have in your H drive. So that's what I did when I first crossed the bridge and went over to Drive. All right, that's your tip of the week. And then as a bonus, if you didn't see the link in the email, the Chromebook scavenger hunt is pretty snazzy. You should check that out. Assign it to your students. The link is in the email. Have a lovely day.